Sportsbook, and I am muted, and you didn't hear me. Welcome to Pistons Talk Podcast, brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. I had my mic muted. It's that type of day. Happy Monday. We're just going to get straight into it. Obviously, we did get some breaking news this morning, including Ausar Thompson. So if you guys are coming in, that's what this podcast is going to be about today. It's Ausar and him getting cleared. So this comes from Shams Charania this morning, and the tweet reads, Detroit Pistons guard forward Ausar Thompson has been cleared to play by the NBA Fitness to Play panel, sources tell ESPN. The 2023 number 5 pick has been sidelined since March due to a blood clot issue and will now begin ramping up and preparing to make season debut in the near future. That is from Shams Charania, ESPN Insider. We also did get a tweet from one of our beat writers here locally in Detroit, Omari Sankofa. I'm going to put that tweet on the screen for you guys to see. Omari had tweeted out earlier this morning, league sources confirm Ausar Thompson has been cleared to play by the NBA's Fitness to Play panel. Big news for the second-year wing, whose rookie season was ended by a blood clot in March. Shams Charania was the first to report it. Sources say Ausar's start date will depend on his conditioning level. And I think that's the big thing right now is a lot of people see this news. They're expecting him to play right out the gate. Obviously, he has to get back into game shape, and his conditioning has to ramp up a little bit. And there were some highlights and clips today that we're going to play later in this podcast talking about just, Ausar in general. But it's really good to see him get cleared. I know a lot of people on Twitter, the discourse was really weird with him. It seemed like a lot of fans thought that he wasn't going to play for the remainder of the season because you kind of look at like Brandon Ingram, he had to sit out for a year. Christian Koloko, he just got recently cleared to play and he was out for over a year. This is really good news if you're a Detroit Piston fan because Ausar Thompson is really going to help you defensively. He's going to be out there defending, the best offensive player on a night in, night out basis. And what is kind of funny is the Detroit Pistons currently are ranked the 14th best defense and just defensive rating right now, which I think is pretty big without their best defender. So Ausar Thompson is definitely going to help this team get better defensively. I do want to play a clip, and this does come from Omari Sankofa. This is JB Bickerstaff being asked about Ausar Thompson coming back and getting back into reconditioning with the Detroit Pistons.
The excitement and just to get him back after everything he's been through over the last few months.
Yeah, I mean, it's more about him.
Yeah.
And we're happy that he's going to be able to come back and play, because that process can't be easy. What he's been through, the time that he's had to put in, the ups and downs emotionally, those types of things. So we're happy for him that it's over with, and he just gets an opportunity to come back and be a part of the group like he's always wanted to.
And then what's the process of getting him acclimated? We know he's been here getting work in to the extent that he can, just getting him into game shape and obviously ready. I guess what would that process look like from here?
It's going to take some time. We're going to have to ramp him up. There just hasn't been an opportunity, obviously, because of the process for him to play 5-on-5 and do those types of things. So, anybody who's been off as long as he's been off, it's just going to take us a little bit of time, but we'll always protect him first and do as much as we can so that he's comfortable first and foremost.
Along those same lines, how do you envision him fitting in with the team, with everything that you're trying to do with this organization?
I think he fits perfectly. He's the type of person that we want to have in this organization. He's the type of player, that we would love to have here. Like, he competes his tail off. He's elite defensively. He's a really good passer and playmaker. So the two things that we talk about, being competitive and selfless, like, that's who he is naturally. And then, we just have fun working with him and helping him grow.
I know it might be a little
The excitement and just to get him back up.
So that was JB Bickerstaff kind of talking with the media earlier today. That was Amari Sankofa had tweeted that video out earlier. And I know the Detroit Pistons posted the full interview on their Twitter account. If you guys haven't seen it already, definitely go check that out if you haven't. But it's good to hear, Coach Bickerstaff kind of talk about Ausar getting back into playing basketball. And we talked about in the summer about Ausar and how he could possibly be used under a JB Bickerstaff-led team. You kind of think about Isaac Okoro. And obviously, Ausar Thompson is a way better defender than Isaac Okoro. But I think he could kind of be used in that same light with the Detroit Pistons. Now, in terms of like playing time, who he's going to play over, is he going to start? I don't know. That's yet to be determined. We could probably maybe get into that later towards the end of the podcast if you guys kind of want to kind of go down that avenue in terms of like where we could see Ausar Thompson playing. Does he take Ron Holland minutes? Does he kind of threaten to be in that starting lineup? We can kind of do that later in the podcast. This was a workout video taken by Cody Davis, another Detroit Pistons beat reporter for the Detroit News, of just Ausar Thompson working out. So I do want to play it on the screen for you guys that are watching live right now. And it's really encouraging to see him get back into reconditioning and getting ready to play basketball again.
Watch your head, Jack.
Just a short little clip, that's probably the most we've really seen out of Ausar, going with Pistons, coaches and trainers. Really encouraging to see him in practice, going at it. So far, we've just really seen like dribbling and shooting drills, but they're probably going to keep ramping him up and getting him more ready in terms of, ramping up his conditioning and getting him in game shape and ready to make his season debut for the Detroit Pistons. We have one more interview clip again. This is from Amari Sankofa interviewing Ausar earlier today.
It's been an emotional journey just to get to this point. Just what does it feel like?
It feels great. Last 7 to 8 months have been a lot of work. And I had all the support, family, team, and it feels good to have the opportunity to go out there and play again.
Coming into the season, I think Trajan Langdon said you initially, I guess the process started right before camp started. I guess what was the process you went through with the NBA's Fitness to Play panel, and maybe any idea why it took to this point to get cleared?
It was just little ramp ups, but nothing crazy. Now we're beginning to really ramp it up and get back in shape. And what took so long, it wasn't up to us, and I'm excited to be back.
We've seen you a lot of times since the start of training camp, putting in a lot of work. But what can you talk about your ability, what you was able to pick up on the mental aspect of basketball? Whether it was doing film study, whether it was watching the game from the sideline.
I think I learned a lot by watching. I've been watching every game, been at every practice, and new coaches. So I feel like I learned by watching.
I talked to you.
So that was just kind of Ausar talking with Amari Sankofa, a little 1 minute interview. There is a full interview again. If you guys want to watch Ausar talking to the media, but really encouraging to see. We do have a question from Mr. Wright, and his question was, is it me or does Ausar look bigger? I thought that during the summer league. I thought he put on more muscle. He put on more mass during the summer league. I thought he was a play. I thought this kind of looking at him physique wise, he did look like he was in the weight room a lot, trying to, add more bulk. But overall, yeah, he does look bigger to me. Maybe he can, keep that muscle throughout the season, but probably not. The way these guys play 4 games a week and back to backs, and running up and down the court, he's probably going to lose a couple pounds. His cardio alone, just burning all those calories, and he's probably going to lose a little bit of weight. But that's to be expected with NBA players. But yeah, he does look bigger to me. Just kind of the videos that we've seen over the past, maybe month or so, with these with the beat writers and being able to take videos after shoot around. But yeah, to answer your question, Mr. Wright, definitely he does look a little bit bigger. Mr. Weezy has a comment. He said, I don't know. Ausar was already put together built wise. Ivy, the one was clearly got bigger. Yeah, Ivy definitely looks yoked. Like, if I'm being honest, like Ivy definitely was in the weight room this summer. You can definitely tell just the way he's been driving to the basket, and just drawing contact, and a lot of his finishes around the rim have been like really crazy, but like in a good way. To your point, yeah, Ausar, like coming out of the NBA draft, he was pretty built, but in terms of like, does he look bigger? I thought he looked like he grew a little bit, like in terms of like his height. But his arms look pretty big. His chest looked a little bit bigger. Looked like he, has been in the weight room, putting on more muscle. But yeah, Ivy has definitely, put on more weight. We'll get to some more comments and questions. But before we do get into that, we have to hear from our sponsors over at the DraftKings Sportsbook, and we'll be back right after this short message, you guys. The Emirates NBA Cup is here. You can win big getting in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All 30 teams split into 6 groups every Tuesday and Friday, playing for the right to advance in single elimination in an in-season tourney. I looked at the lines earlier today, you guys. They had the Miami Heat as a 2.5-point favorite. Odds are subject to change, but I'm taking our Detroit Pistons in this one. We're playing at home. I think this is a very winnable game if you are the Detroit Pistons. First time, here's something special for you guys. New DraftKings customers bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big with the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Every point counts. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code Pistons Talk. That's code Pistons Talk for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you just bet $5 only on DraftKings. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in New York. Call 1-877-8-HOPNY or text HOPNY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 1-888-78-977 or visit ccp.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of the Boot Hill Casino Resort, Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gambling resources, see dkng.com/bball. All right, we are back. Appreciate you guys tapping on in on a Monday evening. If you guys didn't hear already, Ausar Thompson got cleared today by the NBA. It's something that a lot of us have been anticipating, waiting for, trying to get clarity on the whole blood clot situation. So to me, it was like Christmas came early because we're getting our best defenders back. But I do want to get to some comments and questions that you guys did leave during that ad read. So let's get to it. We have a comment from Weezy. Is it me or does anyone else see Ausar and Holland will collide with each other multiple times throughout their tenure? I could see it, like those two going at each other in practice. Like I wish the media was allowed to take videos during their practices, but obviously they're not allowed to. They're only allowed to take videos after shoot around. But yeah, like those two going at each other in practice every day, like iron sharpens iron. Like I would pay to see those two just practice. But yeah, Weezy, I could definitely see them, collide multiple times throughout their their tenure, their future. Obviously, we want both of them to work out in Detroit, but hey, if they don't, I guess you could definitely see those two going at each other. But I really wish they would show practices. Comment from Organic Lindo. Good to see the Pistons get acknowledged for their progress instead of being a bit of jokes across the national media lately. Yeah, I mean the Pistons these days. I was watching. I forget what show it was, but Pistons have been getting talked about in more of a positive light lately, and I think that happens when you start winning games because a lot of people had the Pistons penciled in as like a 24.5 win team. A lot of people didn't really think much of the Pistons. The fact that you went 4-6 in your first 10 games, I think you have at least the media's attention a little bit because you beat a team in the Lakers, which I think that's when they kind of like raised their eyebrow a little bit because the Lakers, but before that they did play the Pistons, they were a team that started off pretty hot, but as of late they're struggling a lot. But yeah, it is good to hear and good to see watching on TV that the Detroit Pistons are getting talked about more in a positive light. And maybe our radio stations around here will start talking about them positively. Who am I kidding? No, they won't. They don't want to trade everybody. Got a comment from Mega Hustle. Ausar is back. Andrea's wife got a fluke dunk on Kate. You guys are wild. Yeah, it's good to see Ausar back. Yeah, the Jalen Green dunk on Kate Cunningham. Like that's all on my timeline today. Rockets Twitter is just taking their victory lap on the win and that dunk on Kate Cunningham yesterday. But hey, man, it is what it is at this point, man. I'm not really going to spend too much time on it. A comment from Chili. Does Ausar push Stu back out to the 3-point line when they play together? I think this is a very good question. In terms of rotation, I don't really know where he's going to be slotted in at. Now, I think some people would say we've been playing Tim Hardaway Jr. at small forward. Offensively, it's worked so far because Tim's been shooting the shit out the ball. Like he's been shooting like really good volume from three. And I think they'll probably continue to roll out Tim Hardaway Jr. at small forward because it's working right now offensively. Defensively, obviously, THA is not the defender that Ausar is. But to answer your question, Chili, I don't think so because Ausar can score without the ball in his hands. He's a very good cutter, really good in transition. I think there's room for both of them to play. And so far it has worked without Isaiah Stewart shooting threes. We've won 4 games without him, spacing the floor. I think JB and the coaching staff will get creative of how they want to use Isaiah Stewart and Ausar Thompson. It'll be really interesting to see though, but I could definitely see Ausar, play a good 20 to 26 minutes a night just because defensively they're going to need his defense night in and night out. A comment from Mr. Ray. Shout out to him. I can't wait to see Ausar play. I expect him to take most of, if not all, of Holland's minutes, which is fine because Holland looks like he needs to spend some time in the G League. Now, I did see that today on Twitter as well, with Ausar getting cleared to play today, which I think Ausar will take a bulk of Ron Holland's minutes, and that's okay. In terms of the G League, we've had conversations during the summer with you guys on the podcast. I was kind of against Ron going to the G League because he spent all of last year in the G League, and he did pretty well, even though you kind of look at the team he was on. They only won 2 games, but that was more of a roster construction thing with the G League Ignite. I'd be really surprised if you saw Ron Holland suit up down for the Motor City Cruise. I think they'll still find minutes for Ron Holland. They're just not going to be as consistent as they are right now because Ausar has been out. But I think there'll still be situations where maybe Ron gets a good, 8 to 12 minutes a night because you can get into foul trouble. Maybe you're versing a team that's a little bit smaller. I think there's a lot of different situations where you could use both a Ron Holland and an Ausar Thompson, in my personal opinion. It's crazy how people think Jalen Green is better than Cade. Yeah, I saw those conversations today on Twitter as well, because obviously the Rockets beat the Pistons. If you guys didn't watch that game, heartbreaker. Don't watch it. You'll get pissed. But this is a comment that comes from Hoopsy Tunes. I think that whole draft class, Cade's draft class, is very talented. Let me say that first and foremost. But when you look at just the statistical categories, Cade Cunningham is better in almost every category than Jalen Green is. And to be fair, Jalen Green isn't even the best player on his team. Like, let's just get that out first and foremost. He's a explosive two guard, but he's an inefficient shot chucker at the end of the day. Very inefficient. After he had that dunk, he struggled to like really, put the ball in the basket. I believe he went like 0 for 6 or 0 for 5 in that spurt, but they got the win, obviously. He got his poster. I'm sure he's been meaning to dunk on Cade ever since Cade flipped his chin in that AAU thing. I'm sure if you guys have know what I'm talking about, if you've seen the video before, but yeah, Jalen Green got his, I don't know, NBA championship moment against Cade Cunningham, if you guys want to call it that, but I'm not really going to spend too much time on the dunk. The dunk is the dunk. Okay, so earlier Weezy had a comment about Ron Holland and Ausar Thompson. He kind of wants to let me know that he was talking about how they're clumsy and aggressive and they're going to collide on rebounds or loose balls and hurt one another. Okay, yeah, so that's where I thought you were going with it initially, but yeah, I could see that too. I could see those two definitely colliding with each other, fighting for rebounds. I don't know how often they will be on the court together unless you're playing Ron Holland at shooting guard and playing Ron Holland at shooting guard and you're playing Ausar Thompson at small forward. But it would be really interesting to see if he ever saw those two out there together. Maybe you do during crunch time if it's a close game, but I don't think right now Ron Holland is ready to play next to Ausar long term. Question from Game Nuts. How do you think Ausar is going to fit with JB's new system? Is he going to take Ron Holland's spot off the bench for the first few games? I think the way Ausar is going to be used is the same way he used Isaac Okoro. He'll be shooting threes. He'll be, being the best defender on that team, and he'll find opportunities to cut at the basket when needed. Being the good passer that he is, being a good ball handler, which is another, topic we can go down because I think he's kind of an underrated playmaker in a sense. I think there's a lot of different ways JB can be very creative in the way he wants to use Ausar Thompson. In terms of Ron's minutes, yeah, he's probably going to take a bulk of Ron's minutes, but probably not right away. They're probably going to really ease him in. They're not going to go right off the gate and play him 35 minutes. I think the Pistons are going to be very smart with it because he just missed I don't even know how many months it was since March. So he's been out for quite a bit. They're probably just going to ease him on in. Maybe you give him a good 10 minutes, a good 15 minutes, and just kind of, uptick his minutes to see where he's at physically. But I think eventually you will see him, take the most of the minutes from Ron Holland. Chuck Brewer, 6 months of nothing but ball handling and shooting drills. I hope we see a better shot. I think we will. I definitely think we will, Chuck. In the ball handling, I'm glad you left that comment because we had talked this summer about possibly giving him more, guard duties. Because if you guys watch the Overtime Elite League, Ausar played a lot of, guard, and he initiated a lot of the offense. And what we don't have right now is a backup point guard. Like, does JB Bickerstaff, instead of, playing Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey in the high 30s, maybe you have Ausar Thompson kind of being that point guard out there and initiating the offense. I think that's something they might want to explore. I don't know how well his ball handling has improved. I don't know if that's something that JB Bickerstaff and the Pistons want to do, but it's definitely an option they could explore, kind of given that they don't really have a quote-unquote backup point guard right now. But definitely something that I would keep an eye on if I'm a Piston fan. Mega Hustle, Tim Ledger believes in the Piston. He was one of the few that showed them love. Yeah, Tim Ledger is a ball knower. Probably one of the best analysts out there in terms of just basketball knowledge and breaking down the game in its like simplest form. So shout out to Tim Ledgler for showing the Pistons some love. I do remember during the preseason, I think it was one of the nationally televised games when they played the Bucks. He was really impressed with the Detroit Pistons. It's a question from Cruza. Was Ausar able to touch a basketball despite not being cleared to play? Yes. So Ausar Thompson was able to do 1 versus 0 drills during this period where they were waiting for the NBA to clear him. So he was able to work on his ball handling and he was able to work on his shooting. He wasn't able to do 5-on-5 scrimmages over these past couple of months or so, but eventually that's what they're gearing him up to do and try to get him in game shape. I have a comment from Clarence Spears. Who do you think the Rockets fans would rather have? I don't know if this is like a Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green question, or is this an Amin Thompson versus an Ausar Thompson question, Clarence? But Rockets have a good future. Pistons have a good future. Teams that have had, top 5 picks. And I think we play them in January, if I remember correctly. I think January 15th we play them. So that is definitely going to be a game that we should circle on the calendar and kind of circle back to. But definitely will be paying attention to that. But I don't really know like what your question is in terms of like who they rather have. But I don't know. The Rockets have a pretty good core, if you ask me. Get to a couple more of these questions, and then we can kind of wrap this podcast up. Appreciate you guys coming on in. A comment from Dwayne Pierce. Would love to see Ausar in the starting lineup a little later in the season. Yeah, like that's where kind of I was at in the summer in terms of like starting lineups, because I thought you need some at least defense out there. If Tim Hardaway Jr. maybe isn't as consistent as he's been so far in the first 11 games, his shot starts to cool off. Maybe you do look to experiment and put Ausar Thompson in at small forward next to Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham and see how that works in terms of just spacing and how they can gel together. But I wouldn't be opposed to throwing Ausar Thompson into the starting lineup later in the season once he gets more reps and gets a little bit more comfortable in JB's new system. What kind of contusion did Bobby have? Did Conor McGregor kick him in the calf? I have no idea. I think it was a calf contusion, if I remember correctly. There hasn't really been any word on his status, but he's another player that I'm expecting to do pretty good things. I don't know where he would be in the rotation if he was healthy. I could see him spending a little bit of time in the G League just to get reps, because you kind of look at the forward positions on this team. I kind of think he could possibly try to fight for minutes with Simone, because most likely he's probably going to play power forward at the end of the day. And Simone's been struggling a little bit to find his shot and get into rhythm. But if Bobby was healthy, I definitely could see, JB maybe giving him the nod to, get some of Simone's minutes right now, but he's not available. I don't know, man. It's a calf contusion. I don't know how much longer he's going to be out. If I had to guess, we should get an update maybe next week at the earliest, because the way they do these evaluations is usually here, every 2 weeks in the beginning of the month, or 3 weeks rather. So definitely keep an eye on, Bobby Klitman's status, because I think he's a guy that a lot of us we're talking about this summer in terms of being a guy that could possibly learn under Tobias Harris. Do a couple more of these questions. This comes from Soul Music 26. Do you feel we need a bigger center with shot blocking? I've talked about it a couple of times. Isaiah Stewart is doing his best being 6'8", 6'9". But you can see there's clear limitations with him in terms of trying to go up against bigger centers, trying to block their shots. But to answer your question, yes. But I think this is a place where Jalen Duren needs to step up. Jalen Duren needs to try to protect the rim. Give the same amount of effort that Stu gives in protecting the rim, because we've talked about Jalen Duren on this podcast a lot. And obviously he's injured right now with the ankle injury. But I mean, he has all the physical tools to be a rim protector. If he was protecting the rim in the same fashion that Stu was, I don't even think we would have these questions about rim protection or going out and getting a big that can protect the rim. And the market right now in terms of free agency is very slim. I mean, do you go out and say, hey, JaVale McGee, what are you doing these days? JaVale McGee is up there in age. But a player that I would keep an eye on if I'm a Piston fan is Miles Turner. He will be a free agent. If the Pacers season doesn't go the way they expect, could they flip him at the deadline? Possibly. They may look to try to make some roster changes at that center position. I don't really know. But if I'm a Piston fan, Miles Turner might be a rim protection stretch five center I look at. He would be at the top of my wish list as a Piston fan, because I think he would fit seamlessly with this young core, can protect the rim, stretch the floor, and just a one of the better stretch fives in today's game. When is Jalen Duren back? I looked at the injury report earlier, Hoopsy Tunes, and he is, I believe, questionable. And he did practice today, so that is a good sign. He didn't practice the following game when he hurt his ankle against the Hornets, but he did practice a little bit today. But TBD on it. He may play tomorrow. He may not. We're going to have to wait and see. Do you think Ausar will be a big help to pick up the slack on the rebounding department whenever Duren is out? Absolutely. Ausar Thompson was one of the best rebounders last year in his rookie draft class. I still remember there was this graphic from Stats Mamba that he was grabbing just as many rebounds as some 7-footers out there. And the one thing that I love about Ausar is just his willingness to crash the glass the way he does. Yeah, he would definitely help out in the rebounding department. He's going to help out in the weak side defense department as well. Little fun fact, you guys, he actually led the Detroit Pistons last year in block shots. A 6'6" wing led your team last year in block shots. So Ausar is just going to make this defense 100% better. All these close games that we're having, who's to say if Ausar was healthy, maybe we're a couple games above 500. But yeah, Ausar will definitely help in the rebounding department. Johnny, thanks for the question, man. Dwayne Pierce has a comment I really would love if we brought back Andre Drummond in a backup role. He did say he wanted to retire as a Piston, so I don't know when that is going to be, but I do think that if the Pistons are willing to bring Andre Drummond back as a backup center and a vet's minimum, who's to say that they don't entertain the idea? Tom Gores is a really big fan of Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond still has a house here. I know the fan base is kind of like they have mixed feelings on it, 50-50. Some fans don't want him anywhere near this team. Other people like yourself, Dwayne, and myself really liked Andre Drummond. I think as a backup, he'd be fine. Kind of depends like what they're going to do with Jalen Duren long term. Are they going to extend him going into this summer? I think a lot of that is to be determined yet. We're going to have to wait and see how Jalen Duren progresses throughout the season. If there are any question marks, yeah, maybe you do look to, upgrade that center position, but it's so early in the season to have these conversations. But I would definitely keep an eye on Andre Drummond. Butler is out for Miami. Good chance to win. Yeah, and it's an in-season tournament game too. So if you beat Miami, you advance to the next round. And it's going to be a good game. Just because Jimmy Butler's not playing, don't expect the Pistons to, just blow out Miami. Eric Spoelstra is one of the best coaches in the NBA for a reason. He'll make adjustments. He'll make sure his guys are playing hard. And I think the Pistons will bring it too. It's kind of cool that it will be a home game as well tomorrow. Comment from Johnny. What I find funny about Drummond is that he went to Philly to chase a ring, but we're closer to playoff contention than they are right now. Yeah, Philly's a mess, man. Like the whole Joel Embiid stuff, not playing, then like pushing a reporter. Paul George gets injured, comes back. I saw some Philly fans saying like I would take Tobias over Paul George right now. That's how bad Paul George has been. Tyrese Maxey is hurt. They're playing Kyle Lowry some big minutes. Reggie Jackson's on that team. Andre Drummond, like it's just a disaster. And what makes matters worse if you're a Philly fan is their draft pick is top 6 protected to the Oklahoma City Thunder. So I don't know. Do they just blow it up and tank and, wave the white flag for Cooper Flag? I don't know. But it'll be really interesting to see when Joel Embiid comes back and if they can kind of try to get back into that playoff picture. But yeah, like Philly has just been a complete mess with the whole Joel Embiid situation. I personally think they should just bite the bullet and take trade offers on them and just start over personally. I just don't see them winning a championship with the core that they have. I think their window passed a couple seasons ago personally, but yeah, the whole Joel Embiid and the 76ers and Paul George thing, it's just been really comical to watch. Obviously, we're outsiders trying to look into what the Philly situation is, but yeah, man, they've just been really, really bad. And the fact that Drummond went over there to try to ring chase is, to your point, kind of funny. Austin Day was even better than Tobias. Oh, man, you guys are wild. You guys are wild. I don't know. The whole Philly situation and Chili brought up Zion. He's going to be out for several weeks. Like the Pelicans and the Philadelphia 76ers have just had like really bad injuries. Like the Pelicans are probably worse than the Sixers. If you guys kind of like go down that rabbit hole and look at their injuries right now, like 90% of their starters are out. Who would have thought that Zion would be out for multiple weeks? Like, who would have thought? We've seen this story before with Zion Williamson, but yeah, it's not a good look if you're a Pels fan or even a Sixers fan. But man, I kind of feel bad for the Pelicans. I was kind of like low key cheering for them. I wanted to see them have a good season, but hey, man, it is what it is at this point. But I do appreciate you guys coming on in for the last 40 minutes or so. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. We're going to be doing a Detroit Pistons versus Miami Heat post game after the game, like around 10-ish. Depends when the game does end, but appreciate you guys coming on. This was kind of an emergency podcast. Wanted to talk to you guys about Ausar and the news because it was such big news today. But I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great night, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Peace.